Okay, good evening, good evening, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome and thank you so much for joining me tonight on In Review. Tonight, the 14th of October, 2021. And let's get on with it. I hope you have been having a great week so far. Today is Thursday. We're talking to the end of the week, but guess what? It is the start of something special as well. So let's get straight into it. Sir Garry, how are you doing?
Well, I'm not doing too good, Let me see if I can. Yeah, I'm doing well. I'm doing well. Thank the Lord. All is good. All is
the, we-
good.
the weather has made us. I mean, it's because we're polo neck, Yeah.
Well, I'm in Birmingham today. So if I was up in Leeds, then probably I'd have to have an overcoat on.
Really, is it that cold down? Is it that cold
No,
in that section of the world?
not really. Not really.
Yeah.
It's just that I've experienced that in the winter times there's a different type of coldness up there and then down here.
Yes.
The 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 cold is more chilly. It pierces more
Mm.
than the cold in Birmingham.
So you have a different type of cold there.
Yeah, yeah.
Is that what sort of cold is that? It's just like flu. I mean, flu is coming back. You know that.
Well, it's like flu and COVID.
It's like they are playing hide and seek or something of that nature.
Yes, yes, yes.
Well, it was a week anyhow still. Well, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for those who are coming on Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube as well. Thank you for joining us this evening as we look at. David is going to come a bit later. Anthony may not. I think he's still traveling all over the place. But listen. One of the first thing that I wanted to talk about, and I'm sure many people want to talk about, is the Prime Minister is on holidays. Um, isn't holidays something that people go on?
Well, is he entitled to a holiday? That's the question.
Is he entitled? Everybody's in, isn't everybody's entitled to a holiday? I think.
Well, okay, I would take that.
Yes.
But I think that his responsibility, what he has in his hands right now, is not an ordinary responsibility that he has. I don't believe.
Yeah.
I think he's got the nations, everybody's lives and concerns are in his hands.
Yes.
And I think that there are times, yes, you need to take a break. Even the boss of BP or the boss of British Telecom or even Jeff Bezos needs to take a holiday sometime. But it's when he takes the holiday. People don't expect bosses of multinational companies to be forever on the job. But I do
Mm.
believe that when it comes to particular instances, they expect the chief executive to be around,
Yes. Yes.
so that he's seen to be concerned of what's happening around him.
But isn't again, and for persons to even say that, isn't again that any leader or any government or any business executive also have people who is underneath them that can carry on the job at the same time. No man is an island.
No man is an island, and no man stands alone. However, one has to be careful how they do what they do. It's
Mm.
like we are husbands and we are fathers in our home, and sometimes um, you may be concerned, but if you don't stand around where your wife is, at times they think that you don't care.
Mm.
You see what
So
I mean?
okay, so you're saying that the prime minister should be standing around that he's caring. So is it like they say sometime in Jamaica, a wicked and uncaring government?
Well, at least show that be around. It's like at the very beginning of this pandemic. Yes,
Yeah.
there was a report. I'm sure know something about it. There was a report that was shared, I believe, at the beginning of this week, if not the ending of last week,
Yes.
which says that the government made wrong decisions at the very beginning, in that they didn't close the borders down, they failed to give the proper instructions, and they waited until the virus was slap bam in the middle of the country before they acted.
Yes.
Now, must we always behave that way? No. If another virus, let's say for instance, if another virus started coming across towards the UK,
Mm.
would you expect the government to act and behave the same way as they did before? No.
Now
I
because
believe that the government should start making decisions. Close the borders.
yeah,
Close the
because
borders. Don't wait for the virus to come and take hold of the country before you begin to do what you need to do. You need to put preventative measures in place, act on them, so that when it comes across, yes, it's
yes.
even more difficult. And I do agree even at times with what Australia has done. They have gone overboard, I understand, but at the same time, they seem to have it more under control than what we ever did in the beginning.
Mm. Well, it seemed like the UK, they said, based on comparison to other countries, UK has not been that great when they compare with the handling of COVID. But they said they're very great at the whole um, planning of the vaccination to get that going. They said that's one of the top bits for the UK. But one of the things, though, what they said about the Prime Minister, and people have been defending him, to say that the minister defended Boris Johnson's decision to stay a holiday, saying it's important to get some family time. As Downing Street said, he's still working on government business while he's away. I mean, many people are actually working wherever they are in the world now because, I mean, maybe it's online working, isn't it?
Well, yes. I mean, you don't you don't want to beat a man when it's down, more or less. It'd be unfair. Yes, and he may still be working while he's away, but you know, I, you see, a lot of these reports that are written, whether
Mm,
they are in our favor or not, a lot of these reports are written and things are said as so as to put people or governments or companies or whatever the report is referring to in a good
yeah.
light.
Yes, yes, yes. No, that's very interesting. But anyway, I think everyone needs to get away as much as possible. It seems like the country is still running. Many people say it doesn't make a difference whether it's here or not at the same time. So I don't know what people have to say about that. If you are you supportive of the prime minister going away? The prime minister enjoying his break. I mean, he recently got a new child, plus the other children untold that we don't know that he has. At the
Right.
same time, so he's got to spend some time with his family. You need a downtime, isn't it? We all need a downtime at this time.
Yeah, everybody does, yes.
Yes. So people have their things, and we take it from there. Now there's something, and I don't want to touch onto the bit with Johnny Barnes until David comes on. But I don't know if you have been following the, the news with the fans at the recent you know football when the fans clash with police, hungry, and not hungry fans, hungry fans. They clash with the police.
Well, again, Silborn, this is not the first time. You see,
Mm,
it always they always portray it as if it hasn't happened for a long time or they never expected it.
mm,
Hungary and those Eastern Bloc nations, when they come across here, there is always a situation. And it's as if they never expected. It's as if they never expected anything to happen. So really, it's I wouldn't necessarily say that. Well, I don't know what to say really. It's quite strange how at different and at particular times things happen in our nation And the way how they portray it, or the way how it is said,
Mm.
it is said as if, and it's giving the impression that these things never happen here, and it's happening here all the time. Every so often, things like these happen, and it's as if it never happens in the UK. It only happens when you get the the foreign, um, you know, people to come across and to do what they do.
Yeah, they, there's a person there, and Johnny Barnes. Let's listen to what Johnny Barnes just said a bit there.
What we're actually doing, we're highlighting from a black perspective the elite aspects of discrimination in terms of either black footballers, black actors not getting Oscars, and I also look at it from an intersectional point of view in terms of from a female point of view, a gay point of view, about women not being able to get Oscars. And you look at the Harvey Weinstein case, for example. Tarana Burke started the Me Too movement about young black girls in the inner cities who were sexually abused. It then got hijacked to then become about Hollywood actresses and Harvey Weinstein. And in football, we're really not looking at it, tackling it in the inner cities, inequality of wealth, education, jobs for the black community. It's more about trying to ban some Bulgarian fans because they racially abuse the footballer.
It's really
Yeah. Okay. I think you mentioned about Johnny Barnes, and Johnny Barnes always say this at all times. Every time they bring Johnny Barnes on, Johnny Barnes say the same thing, that in order to actually get rid of racism out of football, you got to get racism out of the society. And it was a very interesting program there. I think you may have seen it already, where he's saying the same thing about. But at the same time, this is not like English fans. This was Hungary fans. You know, it is prevalent in Europe. This wasn't English fans.
No, it's prevalent in Europe, but racism is not only confined to football.
Yes.
And I think that is what Johnny Barnes is saying. John Barnes is saying, yes, it's. I mean, wherever it shows its ugly head, it leaves a horrible taste in one's mouth.
Mm.
But racism is in our society, and that is where you need to get rid of racism, not just in football. And racism is in Europe.
Mm. Mm. Mm.
Racism is in Europe, even though yes, France, Germany, Italy, Portugal, Hungary, Poland, nice places to go to, wonderful
Yes.
scenery, and yes, you got some wonderful people out there, friends, and such. I don't have any problem with any particular nation, because I've met quite a few Germans, quite a few Polish, quite a few Hungarians, Portuguese, Italians, and Spanish and French. But you've got some horrible people also who are racists.
Mm.
I think that's the reality. And
Let's, yeah.
in order to expel racism, to get racism out of football or out of the workplace or wherever that is, you've got to tackle it in the communities, in the neighborhoods, in the
Yes.
family. That's where it comes from.
Well, listen a bit
really
more
made
what
me
Johnny
think
said.
reading it, Angela, because I don't know, I don't really have a view. I sort of need to hear your
Echoing quite
view,
a lot,
because
Silvan.
when a famous black actor
I'm sorry.
It's echoing quite a lot.
It's echoing. Okay, I know why that is. Okay, let's go.
says there aren't any jobs for black actors, your worry is that he's just talking about himself. Is that right?
Well, of course, what will happen is that he may get a job.
Yeah.
But how is that going to help knife crime in the inner cities? The
What do you
apathy
think?
towards it, or lack of education, or black people being put in prison disproportionately to white people.
But he thinks he's running a campaign for everyone.
However, history shows us that that's different, because if you go throughout history, it's about being elite and non-elite, and any movement of the past in the name of the working man or the masses or the working classes has always been about a group of people who want more for themselves. From the Magna Carta, American Revolution, French Revolution, it's all about a middle class wanting more power, and they use the masses as an excuse. And the same thing has happened. And it's never worked.
I must say,
What do you think about what Johnny Barnes is saying right there?
Well, I think there is some truth to that.
Mm.
The upper class, wants to always exert some influence, some power, some rule, authority. So where does he? Where do they then begin to put the pressure on? Isn't it on the middle class, and then it passes down to the masses?
Yes,
You
yes.
know, and he's so right. I love to listen to John Barnes because I think he is so fluent
Mm.
in what he presents there, and I think because he's so fluent and he's such a role model,
Yes.
big influence in society as far as people such as myself that could probably more or less identify with what he's saying and everything like that. They don't allow him to say much.
Yes.
They just don't allow him to say much.
Someone on said, I live in the Eurovision, and trust me, they're paranoid. Um, Grayson is a live in the Eurovision. I presume the person said they are living in Europe or so.
In Europe, right?
Yeah, and very very paranoid. But Johnny, continue. Johnny, continue. Let me
Don't
know
really hear anyone else saying this. What do you think?
I think
Angela?
it's a remarkable view, and you know, one that I very much respect, because from my perspective, you know, I've always believed in a meritocracy, and I can't imagine what it must be like for a black person to be pulled over by the police just because they're black. And you hear so many of those experiences. You can only empathise, but you can't understand it. But I think that's quite a different thing. And all the things you say about social deprivation is quite different from an actor of maybe a black actor or a woman saying there are not enough parts for women. What happened? I hate tokenism. That's to me that's where the lines become blurred, because there's a big difference between subjugating people and discriminating and saying, well, we'll give you a job because we'd like to have a nice, you know, an Asian face or a black face or a Jewish face or whatever it is, rather than saying, is this the best man or woman
What
for
do you
the
think
job?
of that, John?
No, but from the point of view, just to take up your point about stop and search and talking about a black person being stopped. Now, if a black person, the only black people we know are being stopped is if you stop a black footballer in his car, and then of course that's going to be in the front pages. Black.
You hear that point right there? That's a key point there, that we only know of sometimes when a black person of profile that they stop, and it becomes a big thing. But what Johnny Barnes is saying, that is happening every time. But do
All
you
the time.
think? But do you think that somehow when these discussions come up, and they come up a lot in Black History Month, that it's like going around in circles? It's like the same discussion, no sort of way forward, no sort of resolution.
Every year, every October for the past how many years that we've been having Black History Month, we ask the same questions.
Yes.
Maybe different ways, but it's the same question.
Yes.
It's like a roundabout. We can't take a left turn off that roundabout. And we will not, racism will never be
Eradicated.
properly dealt with
Dealt with.
until until it is dealt with in society. Now, I mean we had just this. Was it this month at the beginning? No, it was last month. Wasn't it last month where on Channel 4 or on Channel 5, every advert had a black person on it.
Yes, there was
Everything.
ITV or one of those, Channel
Right.
4, one of those. I
Now,
forget.
now, why do we have to just limit that to Black history? Why? It
Or
should
for a
be every
day.
day
Or for a day. It was for
or
a
for
day.
one day. Why?
Yeah.
Why? I mean, black people, our parents came here, let us say, from the 40s, from the 40s or even 30s probably, because many of them came and fought in the World War. In the war. At least our fathers and our forefathers came,
Yeah.
our uncles came. So black people have been in this country, right, from let's say the 40s. And it is only now, if I can say, that we're dedicating one day for for black
Yeah.
people to be asked to advertise or to be an advertisement or so. Why?
And you got a point there. Someone said there exactly, it should be every day. And I do find this period of time, it's a lot of I don't think nepotism is the right word, but a lot of sucking up at the same time, where everybody get a break and everybody get this opportunity to do some work with BBC, whatever like that, because they're trying to show that they're very diverse. Then after that, everything goes back to the same order for the next 11 months, and then everything builds up back to this month. But the key thing is, as you rightly said, all those adverts and all those programs which shows the excellence, let's not say black people, the excellence of people. All right, the excellence of people, but also showing the excellence of black people, is that why cannot be natural and normal and regular? And that's a big question. Why can't it be natural and normal and regular? Aqua something saying we have been going around in circles for the last 15 years, especially with youth crime. And that's another point there that somebody just said there, Garry.
Well, I mean, okay, 15 years, I would accept that. But go back even further. Go back to the 60s. Go back to the 50s again. It's not only now we've been having young black men and young black women, 15 years. We've been
Yeah.
having young black men and young black women in the last 50 years. And even though it may have been dealt with in a different guise, but we've still had black men being accosted by the police, thrown into prison. They were much harsher then. They were much more harsher then. But the same thing has been happening year in, year out for the past 50 years. Don't limit to just in the past 10,
Yeah.
15, or 20 years. They've been doing this thing to black people, black men. And I say men because we seem to be, hard done by. Women, our females, our daughters, our sisters, yes, they have also felt the cold, harsh hand of mistreatment. But it's the men. Why are they targeting men? Because they're afraid of us. They're afraid of black men. And some of
Rising
us,
up,
huh?
of black men rising up.
Black men rising up. Yes. Do
Someone
you
just keep talking, guys. I'll come in with
no,
that.
I believe anything that we as men put our minds to, because every man is gifted differently in many ways. Some are good mathematicians, some are good physicists, some are good drivers, some may be good, as we all know, are good with their hands in woodwork and such.
Yes,
Great things. I mean, we all know. Well, let me say, you and I know of men back in the Caribbean, in Jamaica in particular, because that's where we're from. Yes,
yes,
where men can put their hands together and the beautiful handiwork of furniture that they can make and sell, and they are sold at a fraction of the cost. They're sold at a fraction of the cost that what we would have to buy if we went to the stores here, and they're
yes,
much better there.
yes,
They're
yes.
much better. So whatever we put our hands to, whatever we put our hands to, we do the best. We are the best, and that is why they're afraid of us. Because
Now,
anything that we do it, you know,
excellent.
with all our strength.
Well, listen to what Aqua said. True, but black on black has been getting worse over the last 15 years. Talking about black and black violence. Is that also a symptom of the racism factor that is now people are turning on to themselves?
Divide and conquer.
Mm,
That to me again. Um, we need to realize that when we do this amongst ourselves, even though we may call on them to come and do their rest or to come and do their mediation or so, but they don't have to do what they want. They don't have to do what they want to do in their minds.
yes,
Because when we do it, they just have to sit back. When we do it, they just sit back and see us doing it to ourselves.
yes.
And that then causes us to be suppressed.
Mm,
Because they then come in and say, well, we gave you a chance and so therefore, because you can't manage, we're gonna have to come in and do what we were hoping that you were, you know, we'd have to come in and do what we were hoping that you would do. So they come in and then they rule us
Yeah.
and
Okay.
all that.
Yeah. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, for those on Instagram, we are on YouTube and Facebook. You can join us on Silver and TV. You can see it live. Those who are listening, I mean, you're spot on because you're listening and you're on top of it. Carson said, just for being black in a country that is not your homeland, it's a threat. Just for being black in a country that is not your homeland, it's a threat. Exactly, divide and conquer. That point there, being a country that is not your homeland, it's a threat. Is that a fair statement? It's a threat. Or depends on how
I
you
would,
look at it.
I could understand his reasoning.
Yeah.
Now, a lot of us, a lot of our compatriots here were born here, so they don't know anywhere else than here. Yes, they know at the same time that their parents, let us say that their parents may have come here, but they don't know anything about either Jamaica, Barbados, Saint
Yeah.
Lucia, Anguilla, Antigua, wherever the family may have come from. But because they're born here, they um, um,
They don't know where to go. There's nowhere for
they
them to
don't know
go.
where to go, and they call here home. That is
Mm.
fine. But it's those who are here now. It's those who don't know anything. They don't. Well, when I say don't know anything, I mean, um, let us use the Englishman. Let's just use the Englishman for
Mm.
you know, for our example, for our case here. When they see us come, they're not looking at me and saying that that you're an Englishman. They're
Mm.
saying you're Afro Caribbean.
Unless you
But they
win,
can ask
unless you win some top trophy.
on. Well, I mean, case in point. Case
Yes.
in point.
Yes.
I mean, look at Sterling, right?
Yes.
Raheem Sterling. Raheem Sterling, when it suits them, they will say he's a Jamaican.
Mm.
And they'll bring up everything about his father and his history and everything like that.
And the gun on his the
And they're
tattoo
gonna
gun
yeah.
on his feet. Yeah.
But when he begins to score the goals, and better still, if England ever wins the World Cup, ever brings the cup back here with Sterling on the team, Jamaica is not in their vocabulary.
He's a
It's
true
all
lion.
about England.
He's a true lion. Until someone say to them that lions come from Africa.
So you see, we all here, you and I may have our British passports, but that means very little to them. It
Mm.
means nothing because they can take that. The government today, right? The government, and I don't think we mustn't hide out, put our heads in the sand. We must never ever do that.
Yes.
Because we could all fight and we could complain and we could build arguments that we are British citizens, and yes, we are. We may all hold a passport in our hand and says, this is what the government has given, this is what the Queen has given me. I have a right to be here. I'm going to stay here until I die. I'm going to educate my children,
Yeah.
blah, blah, and all of that. But if the government of our day, one day, makes the ruling or begins to discuss that all black people must go back to where they are coming from or where they hail from or where their forefathers come
Ocherius.
from, Ochi or Kingston or St. James, Montego
Yes.
Bay or wherever, that is where we're going. That is
Yeah.
where we're going. And we could all take the government to court. We can do that. I mean, I read something, Silborn, about what happened in Dominica Republic, in the Republic of Dominica,
Yeah.
right? I think it was in the 1930s that
Mm.
the government there disowned or passed a legislation there that disowned every dark-skinned person to take away their rights Well, the Haitians. It was really the Haitians.
Well, that's what I was going to say, because it's so funny. Dominican Republic is right next to Haiti.
Yeah, yeah,
You know.
right next,
Mm.
right next. And you see what happened there from from in one stroke. All Haitians. It didn't matter where they were in society in Dominica. It didn't matter if they were lawyers, bankers, whatever. In one stroke, they lost their rights. All their rights as far as to the laws of Dominica. Don't you think that that could happen here?
Yes, yes, yes.
I mean, we cannot take things for granted, people. We cannot, we must not take things for granted to think and to believe that nothing can happen.
But
There's not a word called
yeah.
can't. You hear
What,
me?
what, what's your take in the fact of our children? Because our children, I got two children now, and you got children as well, who are in this country, and this is the country they know. They know that, as you rightly said, our background is from Jamaica/Africa, but they are born in this country. How do they? Sometimes I ask the question: how do they sometimes feel, if they feel like it is their home, or they actually just passing through? What do you sense to that, Gary?
Silborn, I feel sorry for our generation or our children's generation. In as much as we can always say, and yes, I'm sure we have said it to our children and others have said it to theirs,
Yes,
that this country is theirs and they mustn't feel intimidated by anybody. All their rights and is belongs to them and
mm,
such. But I feel sorry for our children's generation
yeah,
because there is something inherent. I'm not a lawyer. You you know the laws of this country.
mm,
You're a lawyer, a
yeah,
solicitor, but there is something entrenched in the law of this country that in some way in some way I believe does not really support our children,
yes,
even though it would be against the law, and I suppose it is in the law, in statute at the moment, I believe anyway, that
yes,
says that we can't discriminate against any particular person or individual, race,
yeah,
color, or creed.
mm,
But I believe when I was studying a little bit of law, when I was doing my business degree,
mm,
um, to say that the law is an ass,
yeah,
because the law in many ways contradicts itself, and that's why we have lawyers and barristers to
mm,
go through the law when it's
mm.
right, or depending on the crime or the situation.
So it's
They've
like a
got
shackle.
barristers
The law
just
is like
like
a
you.
shackle. The law is like a
Huh?
shackle. It says like a
Yeah.
shackle.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. Cranston person said, from Ignis days, from ages days, white people has been depriving black people of their rights and wanting black people to look up to them as superior. Um, now that comes a lot from the history and the writers of history that gives that sort of person and that impression that they're superior. That is why in the early days you have Jesus who is white, God who is white, and all those sort of things. Muhammad Ali said it well, that he started to get suspicious when he realized everything is white, which is good, and everything which is black. He said, well, white this, white that, and said, black sheep. Oh, and he said he picked up that something was wrong right there. But isn't it now for us, for individuals, to shape the new narrative? Because you know I always find it fascinating when it comes on to Black History Month. People will send me a lot of things. Oh, you need to watch this tonight. Something coming on at 23:35. You need to watch this. You need to watch this. And I said, for Pete's sake, we keep saying that we need to do our own stuff. And every time Black History Month come, we flock to the same people that we're opposed, that we say we don't like, because they've given us some sort of crumbs from the table. when at the same time we've got that excellence of service and excellence of mindset that we can build ourselves. I believe something which I saw, there's a program, and I think I wrote it down, that says spending in black community, does it make a difference? And it says after the murder of George Floyd, the concept of spending black, consciously choosing to buy from black owned business, became an even more popular way in which to support the black community there in every lives. Stats show that whilst black people are 3 times more likely to start a new business than white people, they're all more likely to fail to get it off the ground. Could investing in the black pound be the answer to some of the problems that black people face? That's a program actually which is on BBC. I think it's on BBC, and it is going around. What's your take on that? Are we the ones that have the answer for our future and for the dilemma at the same time when we pull together? And I always say this, every time I say this, I always say, I don't want to sound like a broken recorded tape, because we always keep saying this. We need to work together. We need to pull together. But that's been going on from youngs.
If, put it this way,
Mm.
if the black community who had been here from the 40s,
Yes.
if we supported each other from that point till now, as we
Yes.
should have,
Yes.
don't you think that we would be in a much better position today?
Of course.
Doesn't the nation believe? Every black person, I wish that every black person was listening to your program, Silborn. Not
Mm.
only now, not only for tonight, but all of that. And that is why a lot of us, not a lot of us are saying, I'm not listening to Silborn because Silborn not talking sense.
Yes.
Or he's always talking about this, or he's always this, always that.
Mm.
There's never a word of encouragement, hardly, from some quarters of our own community.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
And that is the problem that we face. Yes, we may start a lot more businesses than any other ethnicity in our country. Yes, we may
You know.
do that. But,
You know.
but at the same time, we don't support each other.
A gentleman, a friend of mine, contacted me today and said, I want to start a YouTube channel for something that he wants to do. And I said to him, yeah, man, that's no problem, man, because I had to learn the hard way, not the hard way, but I had to learn, because when I started my thing and I reached out to a few people, they wanted me to send out my business plan and my ideas and everything. Like, I didn't trust it really, our people, and someone charging me an arm and a leg. I said, by the time I do that, I don't have no house. and, but he's looking for that sort of support. So I said to my brethren, I said to him, I said, listen, I tell you what I'll do. Let's work out a little deal, and I'll support him and take it to the point where I'm at. At the same time, because when I started my show as well, I just had some friends and I named them director, script writer, blah, blah, blah. We just created all of this thing. And the whole essence of it was building and working together. So I said to him, listen, I will help you. And I said, give me a change, give me a support. And he said, I have no problem with that. And I said, let's do it, because I believe that is the way. And Garry, what you said a while ago, if from 40 years ago, all those people that came in the 40s, 50s, really pulled together, but they were, Garry, they did that, but something happened along the way that stopped the process. They were doing that. They were doing the partner. They were doing houses together. They were buying houses and pooling together. But something happened. What happened along the way that stopped that process? What happened?
I'm not a student of social justice, if that's what it's called. I'm not a student of that, but you're so true. But when you look at what was called Black Wall Street, do you remember about that?
Yes,
Black
yes,
Wall
yes.
Street. It happened in Oklahoma.
Yes.
Yes, it was known back then that little street or that area in Oklahoma
Yes.
was very affluent, probably very rich, very very influential amongst the black folk. But what happened there? History gives us the answer of what happened there. It was the white man that went down there and burnt down all the businesses. They burnt it. They ravished. They
Yeah.
killed. They racism. Now I don't know what happened back then because nobody really has come out to tell us what took place back in the 40s. But yes, I do believe something happened that put a stop to that, and I don't believe it was the black man.
Yes, yes, yes. This infiltration. It's interesting, and thank you. Somebody said, "United we stand, divided we fall." I just want to bring this up because since we're in this particular zone, and I don't know if you know about it, but I was just digging into this bit here of recent days, which is something called black fishing and why is it harmful? Because it is, and if I find, let me find the definition, and let's start on that premise there, and with the definition of, let me just identify this lady, which is called Jane Nelson, because it is very interesting, and there she is, and there it is. Black fishing, and this is the definition. Black fishing is a term used for someone accused of emulating a black or mixed race person by using makeup, hair products, and in some cases surgery to change their appearance, usually on social media. The term has entered the mainstream as a result of a shift away from Eurocentric beauty ideals over the past decade towards an ideal of racial ambiguity. It involves cherry picking desirable features from black women. Think unnaturally big Instagram lips, uncomfortable dark tan, and curly locks. Garry, this, I don't know if you followed it, but this is let me get rid of it. Where is it? Where are we now? Why am I getting all of that? That is that. Yeah, this is about this lady named Jay Nelson. Jay Nelson was a group called um, something mix or whatever like that. But I just think that sometimes we are barking up the wrong tree. I think this is like a little distraction. This is a white girl who may be fascinated by black culture, and she dressed herself in that sort of way, and people are offended by it. It is.
I know somebody.
Yeah,
I know somebody who is black,
yeah,
blacker than me, really
yeah,
dark skin, right?
yeah.
And she's saying she's white.
She
So would you
identifies white.
would huh?
She identifies white.
And she identifies as white.
Well,
Hi,
David,
David.
David look white a bit. Is he look?
I honestly joined this conversation at just the right time.
Yeah,
I,
Garrett, finish what you're saying, Garrett, and then ask David if he know what is black fishing.
yeah, I mean, I don't know. I mean, you know, it's up to them. It's I don't have anything. I don't have anything bad or anything good to say. I'm just thinking about probably that individual is confused.
David, I don't know if you had any views on this whole thing called black fishing, because it's about all cultural appropriation. It's in that sort of zone there.
I don't have any immediate views on it. I think if there's a degree of positivity that comes with it, you know me, Mr. Positivity, then
Yeah.
I'm quite happy for people to accept the culture, respect the culture, and promote the culture. So for me, it depends on the context, and it depends on the examples that you set when we talk about black fishing or cultural appropriation. So that's where I sit on this sort of topic. So was.
You see, one of the things that I sometimes find some discussions like irrelevant. For argument's sake, Superman is in the news for a particular reason, and I deliberately says, that's it. I'm not interested in that. I won't go there because I don't find it that relevant in a way. And I think when I look at this particular topic as well with Jesse Nelson and people in lots of getting there in a tailspin, like somebody said here that what is that? It's harmful. Someone said the harm of this is that it's trickery is not someone wanting to be black. They do not want experience of blackness. They want to take from black culture to create a perception of blackness and appear exotic. I can't figure that one out, because if someone like essence about the black culture and they find it fascinating, who am I to beat them down for that?
I agree with you. I just think some battles are worth fighting and some battles aren't. And, you've got to look at the reasons and rationale as to why things are said and spoken. And I take that Superman example as an example, because
Yes.
at the end of the day, you don't have to let that kind of make you unhappy, happy, or whatever. If you want to accept the story, then fantastic. If you don't, then move on. It's as simple as that.
Well, you know what? I did a video today, and I was walking, and the video, and there's a song by a lady called Busey, and they say, "Let me be your Superman." And I was walking and say, "I'm the real Superman." Because Garry, didn't we speak about men? And David, we're talking about men taking their rightful place, men knowing who they are and not to be dissuaded or distracted by different things, having a sense of identity. And being, you always talk about being a Superman with the S on your chest. You know, is that is it somewhat a subtle way of actually infiltrating the mindset, Garry?
Well, I mean, as we were saying, I think I'll let Dave go ahead. Dave,
No,
you
no.
also.
No, I missed that. Sorry, my section went down. But I
Yeah.
heard you talking about having the S on your chest and being, having an identity. I think that's the key and essential to many walks of life. Having that identity and that connection with who you are is key and essential.
um, Key and essential. Yeah. Yes,
Yeah, I'm not
David.
sure
Yes,
what's
David.
happening with my reception. Sorry about this. But yeah, it's key and essential to moving forward, really.
Yeah, that's very interesting. But Garry, any last word on that one? Because these are, I touch on this topic, but sometimes I think that we have also got to look at our children and the future for our children, because they are the ones that have the somewhat impressionable minds, and therefore things sometimes subtle in a subtle way that will come in. But I think what David says and what you say is also right. We have got to, from our home and from our home base, teach them our values, because we can't stop them once they go out there, isn't it? They're going to be, so teach them the values of today, or our values.
Yeah, I'm very, very concerned with our children, both our boys and our girls, and I'm more concerned about our sons, my son, of
Yes.
the values that I was taught as a boy, growing up into a man, into a person such as myself. Was instilled in me from my mother,
Yes.
pointing me to my father, more or less, to
Yes.
be who I should be, to be who I can be, and helping me to find myself. Now, now, we've got a leading toy company saying that they're going to be gender neutral, and then having, like Superman being bisexual. I mean, when I was growing up, I was reading about Superman. You know, I was reading about him in the comics. I collected the comics, the Marvel or the DC comics. I had loads of it, and I used to be running around the playground with my overcoat, saying I'm Superman with with my coat in the wind, flapping, you know, and until in the 80s, when Superman came on the screen, and then in the 90s and early 2000s, now we see a more updated version of a macho Superman. What's wrong with that? What's wrong with our boys having that, being able to identify in things like that? I mean, I think there's always a right way and a wrong way, but I think that our boys are being, if the term is emasculated, or is dumbed down, to think that really, they're not
They're not supposed to be macho. David, do you think that the boys growing up in this country, or men, boys, that there's something missing? There's an essence of strength, masculinity, and power is not encouraged that much.
I mean, I take the point that Garry makes there. What I would say is that kids have a degree of innocence here, okay? And their understanding of masculinity is a lot different to that of an adult population.
Yes.
So I can only say that boys will be boys, and they'll play roughhousing in the schools. And if you were privileged, or not privileged, that's not what I'm trying to say here, but if you were able to see kids in the playground playing, if you had kids of young age, you watch them playing in the playground when you drop them off at school. I see them roughhousing all the time. I see them playing around, boys being boys. Little son comes back with bruises, not from anything other than playing around. So I think it depends on what age you're talking about here. I do think we do look at the kind of the adult concept of the way that things are changing over time. And things are changing over time, and we put our feelings on that kind of pressure. But I don't think this particular story about Superman is going to stop little boys running around pretending to be Superman. In the same way that I don't think girls running around pretending to be Superwoman will change. But I get that there is more of a discussion now about gender neutrality and gender identity, and that discussion is taking place obviously up and down the country. But the discussion there, generally speaking, is occurring among adults in regards to how that is affecting society going forward. And I think that's the thing here. I don't think that the innocence of children growing up is being particularly affected. But I'm happy to hear suggestions in that regard.
Yeah. That's very interesting there. Somebody said. I think they're saying, David, you're staying on the fence. I know that D sounded, David.
Well, and this is the beauty of opinions. We can talk about the and people will agree or disagree with what I've got to say, but equally people will disagree. I mean, I don't see that kids have changed discernibly. The thing that's changed discernibly over the past year and a half is COVID's affected the way that kids interact now more than anything else. But I do see kids interacting in the same manner that they would do. And you're right that adults make that influence, and adults raise kids in the home. And I think that that's, on the whole of things, is the way and direction of how kids will be educated going forward. But also, school has a big part to play in that too. And kids being kids and being able to play around in the way that they do, they carry on with. So there isn't falsehood to what I've got to say. It's an appreciation of what I see in front of me. Again, when I'm able to go to the playground and drop the little one off at school, and observe what's going on the playground for a few moments of time, for a few minutes when I can see that, I don't see very much has changed. Yes. But we have to appreciate the adult spin on this. It's adults discussing the concepts, the real high level concepts. It's not like a 5-year-old child is drawing these images of Superman being bisexual. They don't understand what that means. I'm trying to make a point that the innocence of the child's mind doesn't understand the adult concepts that we're talking about today. So I don't feel that that's changing for them overall.
I agree with you, but to disagree in the sense that that yes, the child doesn't know, but the parent knows, and it weighs heavily on the parent in knowing how to manage that, because the child during school term now, let's say for instance, the child goes to school and the teacher, whoever they stand before 8 hours of the day, 5 days a week, teaches them in a particular fashion, in a particular way. They stay. It is said that children on average stay more longer with the teacher than with the parent at home. And so who has the greater influence here? Even though the child doesn't know, I agree with you on that, the child doesn't have a clue on what we're talking about here. I mean, as far as they're concerned, to some extent, it's a pie in the sky situation when it comes to gender neutrality and all of that. But it's what is being taught. That is what's having the influence over them.
I think I get where you're coming from there, Gary. But one thing I will say is what is being taught. So I don't expect there to be a science class or a maths class or a religious education class where there's this complete discussion about gender neutrality. That's the point I guess I'm trying to make. Yes, the 8 hours a day they're teaching, and I think what would be nice, we're inferring, but what would be nice, and I'm sure I would love to see this, and I'm sure my parents and their parents would love to be those fly in the wall to see what's going down in the classroom, so you can make more of an assessment as to what is occurring. But I don't think it's a first and foremost topic of the tongues of schools. Schools lead by the want and desire to get children through their classes and perform excellently, and have their school and their league of tables perform highly as well. So that's why I say, look, the news out there is there. Let's not forget about the innocence, and I keep going back to that word, the innocence of children. It's beautiful. It's a beautiful thing. Like, watching them grow, watching them learn, watching them understand the world and make judgments. That will come with obviously parenting. That will come with teaching, etc., etc. But there are a lot of adult type concepts that we do discuss, and we then make the jump or leap to suggest that it's definitively influencing a kid in a particular direction. Now, don't get me wrong, kids soak up all that information and they will question. And I think that's the great thing about kids. They will make questions, they will ask questions. And when they ask those questions, it's for us as adults to operate in a factual manner, in a manner that we feel is going to lead to positivity in their degree and in their life, and in that upbringing as well. So I don't deflect. If my child asks me a question, I don't deflect. I answer that question with integrity, with honesty, as best as I can, to allow them to develop and for them to grow. And so if and when that time comes that conversation happens with my child, then I'll be open and honest with them. And I think that's the key. If you can, I don't think you need to have that conversation before times, for me personally. But I do think that conversations will come. And those difficult conversations will come. Those questions about the birds and the bees, to this day, I don't understand what the birds and the bees stands for, but or material as is. But I know those conversations do come.
I hear them in the morning when I'm walking. Birds and the bees.
Birds and the bees. Okay.
Peers can be more influential than parents or teachers. That's what somebody just mentioned on Instagram there. Guys, can I just ask, have you guys have any camera at your house? Any of those Ring things at your home?
Most definitely, yes.
You got one?
Yes.
Oh my days, man! You're careful, because there's a big thing just happened recently. A big ruling now, David, that if it is infringing over someone's house, there's a where is it? Neighbor wins privacy row over smart doors, bells, and cameras. David,
I think that's perfectly acceptable, because what you don't want is people to be videoing your property without undue permission. But most of the products that are there are viewing a particular area. So we have a door cam, for example. So that's stuck on our door, and it's just there to see who comes to the door and when they knock on the door, etc. But yeah, you have to. You're right. I can't say enough. You don't want to have cameras pointed at properties without undue permission. It's not the right thing. It's bordering on being quite invasive. And I think that's the key here. What's very interesting, however, is if you walk up and down a high street, there's going to be countless number of cameras watching you, and I don't know that you can win very many lawsuits in that particular degree.
That's the thing. That's a tricky bit, because it says a judge's rule that security cameras and a Ring doorbell installed in a house in Oxford shall unjustifiably invaded the privacy of a neighbor in a case that could have implications for home surveillances and devices. But at the same time, if you're in a restaurant and you're having meal, you have cameras all over the place as well, isn't it?
I think
privacy.
So sorry to interject, but I do think that the only difference here that I can really see, and probably the reason that it was ruled the way that it ruled, is this is your personal property, this is your personal house, your personal space, whereas you come out of your house, you generally don't own the high street, you don't own the drive that's outside the house, you don't own the restaurant, and so you're walking into a public establishment. Whereas this is, your private, your house, your board. That's where the nuances, I think, probably change a little bit. But even then, the the idea that you're not being watched is probably a little bit more different out in the real world than that are in your house.
You know, Garry, I think that lady one day, the doctor, is going to regret it because something is going to happen and she's going to wish she could have gotten a footage. In my, I'm a neighborhood watch chair for my street. And sometimes when things happen, we always say, go and check the neighbor across the road there to see if anything came up on their camera. You know, it's going to bite her one day. Because in a way, and as a neighborhood watch chair, I always say to the neighbors as well, is don't feel bad looking over at someone's house in the night if you hear a sound. And we always say, don't worry about shifting curtains. You know, the looking through your curtains, and always say, your job and your be a lookout for the houses that you can see. One might say, well, your privacy.
And I think you reached into something there quite deep, Silverborn, in that there's something deeper to this story than meets the eye. Most people within a particular neighborhood would want cameras to be up and around to protect the neighborhood. They want good lighting, they want good neighbors, they want communication, they want it on Facebook or WhatsApp or have a group where you can share things quite instantaneously. Oh, wait a minute, what's going on in that house? Let's share the question. Are you aware, right? So there's something deeper here to this particular scenario where there may well have not been a good relation between the two opposing neighbors. And I think that would probably lend itself to, oh, you've got a camera? Okay, got a camera. This is my personal belief, that camera now is a problem for me. Therefore, we're going to go to court for it. So that's just my feeling. It's a thought. It's not fact. Before anybody says anything, I just think.
I think she can't afford. She's not able to sunbathe anymore.
I'm not commenting any further. I just think there's a breakdown in communication. Essentially, this happened there, because as I say, most people would want to have a camera up, other than the fact that if the camera's pointing directly into your bay window of your bedroom or something, then I don't see it as a particular problem for cameras on homes, generally speaking.
Yeah, Garry, any last word on that?
None at all.
Very brief and go on.
No, I mean, I agree with everything Dave has said. I mean, the camera on a bell. It depends on how high that bell is and how powerful the camera is in the bell. That's really going to pour or take a picture in another person's front door or thing. You see, some people, to tell you the truth, some people are too sensitive. They're too funny people, and I think that when it comes to certain things like that, it doesn't make sense trying to argue your position, because people are always going to try and say, well, they're peering into my bedroom, or they're looking at me in the backyard. And the thing about it, the camera can't look through the house. It's just taking a picture of an individual that is standing before you in the doorway.
Garry, maybe it's a James Bond type of camera because they are in this high-tech world, you know what I mean? Look at William Shatner. William Shatner went to space. I mean, is it Star Trek he was in? Is Star Trek?
Yeah.
Beam Me Up Scotty with him and those guys have been in space for years in those movies. And finally, he was able to go into space. You know what I'm trying to say? Finally. He wasn't even crying. Do you see that? He wasn't even crying, man. Say, just being in space after living in space for so long. And some of, and these guys had all these virtual thing which was happening before all of these things came around. You know that? Somebody pointed out to me to say, watch movies. Movies are sometimes snippets into the future. Because they were doing all these virtual things long time before virtual. They had these phones and all those sort of things, man. Whew. Man, what can I say? David, what's the latest thing? What's the latest invention, man? You know it?
Latest invention? I don't know. Watch a James Bond movie. Again, art imitates life. Does life imitate art? I agree with you.
Definitely. Well, guys, listen. We didn't get to touch on to Dave Chappelle. which is something that I wanted to touch on, but that's another time with the cancer culture. But one thing for sure, I sense with Netflix, I think I see where Netflix is going. Netflix is saying, I know people don't like some of the programs that we put on our platform, but we are just there as a platform. Because David, do you remember that show years ago, or maybe last year or so, with some little children or so? And I think we spoke about it, that it was not good and it was like pornography or underage thing. Netflix did not take it down.
Yeah. So I think I'll talk very briefly on it. Maybe we can touch on more next week. I don't think the show will get pulled. I think that I agree with you that they just put the content out there. Their content is there for people to watch and comment on, and the comments actually drive up interest, whether that interest is negative or positive. As you found out from Mr. Donald Trump, you can utilize that in a manner that will only drive more people interest. So it's never bad press is never bad press. Good press is never always good press. It's just press, and people will pay attention either way. So I can't see it coming down. They've paid him millions for this. They want to recoup their money, and that's what they'll do. They'll recoup people, watch it over and over again, and still come.
Yes. All right. Well, guys, listen, and ladies and gentlemen, I want to thank you so much, David. I hope you had a busy week, I presume. Thank you for coming on late.
No problem.
Doing your duties. I'm just let you know. If you know, sometimes I'm looking up like this. I'll talk to you, but I got a different prescription, which I'm waiting for the glasses to come so I can look straight.
You need to sort that out.
The varifocals thing has been driving me crazy, man. Like this. But I'll tell you what they did. I'm getting two different back to, we'll talk about that. Yeah. Garry, have a good week.
The same to you, my brother.
Okay. Make sure you guys get out there and do a walk and talk and exercise. And you can see me doing my skipping, man. Yeah.
Yeah, keep that skipping up. Because remember, God is good all the time. All the time.
All the time.
God is good. All right. Take care, David, and take care, Garry. Peace out.
Okay, God bless.
Thank you, guys. Cheers. Thank you. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for joining the show, and thank you for those on Instagram as well, those on Facebook. It was a very interesting show. We spent a long time on Black history and issues about racism, and let us also continue the conversation some other time as well, which would be great. And for you to also continue the conversation with your people as well, and let us hear your views, especially on David Chappell, cancer culture, your views as well on the whole aspect of bashing. I keep forgetting this term because it is something which is new to me. Black fishing. Wow. Anyway, God bless you. Have a good night. Those on Instagram as well, thank you so much. Peace out. Good night. Until next week. Tomorrow on Saturday night, remember to join us on Talk and Sip, which we'll have a good discussion. Some of these things will come back as well. Okay? Peace out. And all the best to Elbow Bump. Okay, Elbow Bump. There it goes. Elbow Bump. These want Elbow Bump. Elbow Bump. See you around. Bye-bye.